All right, it's the end of the first week of National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. This week was Be Cyber Smart. Let's talk about it. Hi, I'm Chris Burns from Techie Gurus. It's Be Cyber Smart Week, so let's get into this. There's a few things that you should do to be cyber smart. These techniques, these tools are going to help you be a better consumer, be a better employee, just be better overall, whether it's your personal or professional life. So the first thing is you need to have better passwords. I'll break this down. We've been doing a lot of password cracking with internal customers recently, and some of the things that we found is kind of alarming. In less than an hour, we can pretty much compromise 60-70% of passwords by just doing simple things like running it against a word list. It's actually kind of terrifying. So we got to change that. We all got to be cyber smart about passwords. Your password should probably be 16 characters or longer. And I know, you're going to say, Chris, that's insane. I'm never going to be able to memorize it. Well, I'm going to add to it. You shouldn't reuse passwords. See, now I'm blowing your mind from the standpoint of now it's got to be 16 characters and you can't reuse it. See, the problem is when you reuse passwords is if one password gets exposed and let's say it's tied to your email address, guess what people will do? They will take that combination and try to just spray it against other sites to see what they can get access to. So what we really need to do and focus on is getting a tool like a password manager, LastPass, Keeper, KeePass, 1Password. Get that in your toolbox today. If you don't already, go get it right now. I'll put some links below. I'll try to kind of give you some guidance on that. We use Keeper internally. I've used LastPass. It really doesn't matter as long as it's a reputable solution and you take care of it. But the key with that is there's one password to get access to everything. So you want to make sure that that's as long as it possibly can. I suggest a passphrase, a long sentence, something that's specific to you, that it's easy for you to memorize, but then also not easy for somebody to guess. All right, so after we get our passwords done, we get our password manager, let's talk about multi-factor authentication, two-factor authentication. If you're not using it today, shame on you. You should be. So what is it? It doesn't matter how strong your password is. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Because if a breach happens, which is always possible, if all it is a single factor of authentication, your password, so your username and your password, they get into your account. Easy. Simple. And this is also why you don't write passwords on sticky notes and put them on your computer. That's bad practice. Let's just go with it. So what you want to do is enable multi-factor authentication. Sometimes it'll be called two-factor authentication. And what that means is you're going to use some other source of authentication when you go in. So it'll be username, password, and something else. Something else should be an application on your phone. So it could be Google Authenticator. It could be Authy. Apple now has it built into iOS 15. It could be Duo if you're a professional environment. It could be Microsoft Authenticator. They all work. It's just a matter of you have to use it. And you want to be careful about using them because if you lose the device that they're on, you may have to go through some hoops to get it reset. So you want to make sure that you have that protected as well. So I like Authy for personal use because you can password protect it with a nice long passphrase, leverage that with your password manager, and then you can also add it to another device just in case you do lose a device. Google Authenticator has made it a lot easier to transfer passwords as well from a personal standpoint. Microsoft Authenticator as well. When you start getting into business, Microsoft Authenticator kind of falls off. I love it for getting into Microsoft 365, but I don't love it because when you switch devices, you have to go and add another authentication. You have to add your new phone basically before removing your old one. So it's really up to you which one you want to use. Just use one. Like I said, for personal, I'd probably do Authy. For professional, I'd probably use Microsoft Authenticator or like Duo. Duo for us is probably the top of the line for a business application. All right, so we've covered passwords, MFA, password manager. Let's talk about your devices. Recently, Apple's had a rough go of things. They've had a lot of exploits out there where it's fixed by just simply updating your devices. Now, the major one that was tied to the Pegasus spyware, Apple, they push out devices updates automatically, but it wasn't being pushed out quick enough, so they actually said to go in and manually check it. This is the same for Android devices. Mac, if you have a MacBook, OS X, whatever you want to call it, Mac computers, Apple, Windows PCs, things like that. You should always be running updates on this constantly because things happen. Vulnerabilities. This year, there's been more probably vulnerabilities just out in the wild that have been publicized than we've seen in a long time. And that's not uncommon. There's vulnerabilities all the time. But making sure that you fix those is really paramount because you don't want things loaded on your computer that could steal your information, like keystroke loggers, Trojans, things like that, that can give people remote access in your computer and let them steal things. So with the Apple one with iOS, they actually had full access to your phone, could read a lot of your contacts, your text messages, everything like that. And it was just to simply go into a website and it could just infect your phone. So you want to make sure you get your phones up to date. Obviously, in a personal environment, antivirus is critical. We, in business, provide like some next level, a lot of people call it next generation antivirus. I kind of hate that term, but hey, it is what it is. It's a lot more thorough than traditional antivirus. Provides a lot more insights into like an entire attack chain. But let's just say that you want to make sure that you protect them, update them constantly. All right, so now that we got your password set, your device set, let's go on to app security. A lot of times on mobile phones, and Apple does a decent job of this, they've kind of changed their privacy rules, but an application will ask for certain permissions. When that does that, you want to make sure that you're only giving permissions to applications that they need. Now, sometimes you won't be able to use the application if you don't give it the right permissions. So take that into consideration. Like if you're using a map application, it requires your GPS, your location information. That's a requirement. It can't do its job if it doesn't have that. So this is why you want to be very critical of what applications you actually put on your phone or your tablet or your computer. And you want to make sure when it asks for permissions that it's very specific on what it needs. A calculator app does not need access to your microphone. A measuring app doesn't need access to your microphone or your camera. Why? Why does it need access to that? Or your contacts. So be mindful of that when you look at applications that you're loading on your phone. What kind of permissions is it asking for? Because if it's asking for too much, there's probably something suspicious going on with that application. It could try to steal your data. Let's move on to one I don't really talk about too much. That's oversharing and geotagging. So, look, we have made social media what it is today. We want to share our life experiences. We want to share our vacations and things like that. But be careful about that. Because if you're gone and you're posting stuff on your social media that's public to everybody, criminals can actually get access to that too. So if somebody's casing your neighborhood and they see your Facebook page and it's just wide open and it shows you in Florida, right, and you live in Michigan, your house is kind of fair game. You know, geotagging is something that's important for like photos if you're trying to keep track of them so your phone can like give you like an album of like where you've been and things like that. But like you want to make sure that you don't just geotag posts and things like that you put on the internet because they can see where you're at any time. So think about that before you post. You know, it's okay to not share that you're going on vacation. It's okay to share after you get back. Hey, I had this great vacation. Here's some photos. Here's some videos. We had a good time. You know, things like that. So it keeps your family safe, keeps your house safe. So let's talk about internet security when you're traveling. Wi-Fi security. It could be something in a hotel. It could be in an airport, a resort. It used to be that a lot of our communication was unencrypted. So now that Chrome, you see in Chrome, you see in Edge browsers, there'll be a little lock next to a website up in the corner. You'll see that. That means that it's running over TLS. It means it's encrypted communication. It used to be a lot more dangerous because not every website ran like that. By default, most websites now run encrypted. But when it was unencrypted and you went to Wi-Fi and you connected to a Wi-Fi at an airport, people might be able to see what you're doing. See your login credentials being sent over it in clear text. Clear text means anybody can read it as long as they can get to the traffic. So that's kind of changed. I know a lot of people out there love VPNs. They love buying Nord. They love buying these other VPNs. You know, the ones that say, I don't log stuff. And then all of a sudden you find out later they logged everything. So anything you did on it. And we know that not everybody does good stuff on VPNs. The logs were there. So they could be followed. So be smart about things. When you go to websites, like banking websites and things like that that are really critical to you, make sure there's a little lock next to them or it's a secure or something like that. When you're traveling, honestly, a personal hotspot is going to be a much more secure way of doing things off your phone, off of an actual hotspot if you have one, than connecting just to free Wi-Fi. You have a better understanding about the security of that than you do in a free Wi-Fi situation. I'm not saying all free Wi-Fi is bad. If you're at a Marriott or a Hilton or something like that where it's known that they're doing it the right way, fine. Go ahead and do that. Make sure that the lock's always there. Make sure that you're looking for that. If you go to websites that don't have a lock, you really should be thinking about what kind of information you're ever giving them. If you go to a website that says it has an SSL error or a certificate error, you really don't want to continue that. That means it's either expired or something else is going on. So just think about that before you browse. All right, let's talk about one of my favorite things, phishing. Now, normally I'd want to be talking about phishing like in a lake or an ocean. Unfortunately, I'm talking about email. And it's where they're going to try to get you to do something you shouldn't, try to get you to bypass security protocols that you shouldn't. Could be logging into what looks like a Microsoft 365 login or a Google Workspace login, and suddenly you're putting your credentials in, and then you have instant regret because you're like, oh no, what did I do? Yep, that type of phishing. So I've seen some really bad phishing attempts. I get them all the time. The amount of faxes I receive when I don't use fax is pretty alarming, but we have to be smart. As we go into the holiday season, it actually gets worse because people are expecting packages. So like the FedEx ones, the UPS ones, USPS ones, they get really bad because they've become very good at hiring native English speakers to actually create the emails. So they're trying to get you to click on something, right? Now that click could mean it could download something. It could mean it gets you to a website, like I said, where you put your credentials in. Be careful. Be vigilant. If you have an IT provider or if you have an IT, in-house IT, if you have any doubt in your mind, any doubt, just send it to them. Or at least call them up and say, hey, look, I think I got a phishing email. I just want to validate whether it's real or not. A lot of times you can look at the address line, you can tell. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes they get really sneaky and they make it really long and you can't see it, especially on your phone. Your phone's probably the easiest one to get you to do stuff on because the limited screen space makes it really hard to see the entire email address. So think before you click. And that goes back to the browsing, but just in general in phishing, think before you click, think before you act. And if you do that, that's how you stay cyber smart. That's how you are cyber smart. And it's good for personal, it's good for business. Just make better decisions. And I know that's not easy. We're all human. We make mistakes. But if you make a mistake, let the appropriate people know sooner rather than later, because the sooner we know, the sooner we can help you out. So I'm Chris Burns from Techie Gurus. I hope you had a really great week, the first week of Cybersecurity Month. If you have any questions, comments, post them down below. Let us know. And until next week, be cyber safe.